Hi guys, we've done this one a little bit backwards, but I'm thinking this is the last time we need to have any struggles with getting lost in puddles, so we should be alright after this. So we've done the puddle jumper versus puddle fish. We've done the puddle fish separately, and I'm just going to do pretty much the same review of just the puddle jumper. Again, this is the carbon wrap puddle jumper. It's 6'2", 22 and a quarter and 2 3/4 with 43 litres, and it is in the carbon wrap technology. Now I'll probably start with this time. So this is actually a slim dim, so they do different dimensions. So normally you would see about 42 litres in a 511, I think, in this. This one was what they call the slim dim, so it's actually a longer board, and it's the same literage but in a longer board. So where this would normally be like a 511, this is actually a 6'2". So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're listening to this review, because it's obviously subjective to that. So yeah, as I said before, this is compared with a lot of other grovelers that I've ridden. Baked potato, sweet potato. I had the Chumley just before this, and when I first got the Chumley I was like, oh, my mind was blown, and that's all the groveler that I needed. And the Chumley was actually after having the Litres puddle jumper, and as I've said before, the Litres puddle jumper's got this wing, it's got this stepped wing in the tail, and the technology's really good. I like the Litres technology, but something with wingtails I've never really quite got on them. On, you know, average surfer, average waves, and they do say that about this, but I've not found it so much with this one. But on the Litres puddle jumper, unless your foot's there, you can put your foot there and it'll just turn absolutely amazing one turn, and then you can be a bit out of position on the next turn, and it's just not quite what you're expecting. So it can be like excellent and then okay, and it's a bit more fussy with fins. So yeah, so ended up finding this one second hand, and snapped it up because it's virtually brand new. As I say, 6'2" in the slim dims. It's in the carbon wrap technology. So basically you've got EPS core. There is some sort of biaxial weave cloth in here. It's almost like an Allegra kind of cloth. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's almost that kind of thing going on. And as you see, you've got this carbon running around there. So you've got these are almost like little seat belts. They're almost like the thickness and the weave of a seat belt. So this carbon comes around the board, off onto the rail, and wraps around onto the tail there. And then you've got this separated carbon stringer to replace your normal wooden stringer. And basically the way I understand it is when your foot's around here, ideally on your back foot, you've got this beam through the middle, and this stiffness in the tail panels, and I would say between here and there, that allows you to get that pivot and spring. As I said before, these are really fast boards. They definitely get up and get going quickly. The outline shape's really good. It's wider than you'd be used to. The nose is quite big, so even compared with some of the other grovelers that I've ridden, it is actually quite a big nose and a wide outline template. But honestly, don't be scared of that, because it really doesn't hold you up. If you're an average surfer in average waves, it really doesn't hold you up at all. So yeah, that's the carbon wrap. You can see the outline shape there. You've got this big, basically a big squash tail. So that's the puddle jumper. Obviously, as I said before, the puddle fish just carries on a bit straighter and it goes into a fishtail, and the puddle jumper with the rounded pin just comes in a bit tighter and gives the board a bit more wave range. So basically you've got puddle fish, puddle jumper, and puddle jumper rounded pin. Now, as you'll see from the rocker, it's a fairly flat rocker line. Hopefully that comes out alright. So it's very fast, it's very easy to paddle, it's very springy and poppy with a carbon wrap. If you look specifically at the tail, it's actually quite thin in the tail, and there's quite a bit of V running off the tail, so it's actually more sensitive than you might imagine, especially in this longer length. And with it being 6'2", it actually gives it that upper wave range that you probably wouldn't get on the 511. Now, what I believe separates these boards from a lot of the other grovelers, I'll try and show this from the front side later on, but basically what you're running in the board is you're running a single through here, and it's stepped into being a double and V double and V out the back. So I believe grovelers are usually running like double concaves or a fairly flat bottom. This is actually running your pretty much your standard shortboard concave. So the whole principle behind that is if you imagine you've taken an arc and you've basically cut it straight through this board. That single concave then goes deep into there. So basically what you end up doing is you end up flattening out. So the rocker at the stringer ends up being very flat, and the rocker at the rail is allowed to curve. So the rocker at the concave through here allows the rocker to remain straight and give you a lot of speed, but it allows the rail rocker curve to curve away and give you that response when you're on a rail. So you're kind of getting the best of two worlds. So that's the sort of that's the clever bit of that. Now wave range, you can ride this in probably about you probably want to be about waist high. If you're really good, you can be all over, but it's really like waist high, chest high, sort of waist high to head high is kind of like the happy spot, as Matt Biolis himself says, which is absolutely dead right. And then you can push mine into overhead, but we have a very slow rolly local wave. It's a crumbly wave. It's spilled over. It's not very hollow. So this sort of board, this could almost be your short board for day to day, apart from when it really starts getting big. This will do the job most of the time. Obviously, if you've got like an onshore wave or a wave that's folding over quite quickly, or a hollow wave, these could probably be getting going too fast. You might not get the grip you want in the tail. But on our local wave, I've taken out in overhead, and it's a little bit slower responding than the short board, but not much. You can still, for my ability, I can still crack it under the lip, which is hardly what I'm capable of doing, but it feels like that, and it makes you feel like you're surfing better than you are, which is always a good thing. So yeah, Puddle's great, catches waves really early, generates its own speed, super versatile. This tail's pulled in enough so you can ride it as a thruster if you want. So I'll just go through some of the fins that I've been trying and used in it. My personal favourites for this one have been these McCallum Especial quads. So these are Captain Finco, and they look like a really funny fin, but they work great for me. They're very swept back and they're quite a deep quad. They produce quite a lot of drive and hold, but they're not too tracky. And then you have like these, which are basically the same as a Lost controller. These are the Lost Seaworthies, they're called basically, but the same as the Futures controller. So that gives you almost like, it's called the split keel because it's basically a keel fin split in two, and you get lots of drive and rake and long drawn out turns out of that front fin, and then the back's a bit more upright, so it kind of balances it out. So these have got heaps of hold, lots of grip, lots of drive. These are what I run by default in the Puddle fish. You don't actually need to go quite this far with the Puddle jumper. So yeah, if you wanted an all-round board that's a step down from your short board, and you still want that squash tail feel, and you want to be able to run smaller fins or thruster fins or a standard quad, this has probably slightly got the edge over the Puddle fish. I haven't tried them, but I'm pretty sure you could have a go with something like this as well if you wanted to. That's the Almerics. The MR is the same, so you've got, they call it a 2+1, so it's like twin fin with a little stabilizer, and this is really cool because it's actually quite raked back, so it's probably gives you quite a bit of grip for how small that fin is. And then that's kind of like a giant GAM template, so that would work probably better in the Puddle fish again. But into this board you could just be running your standard quads. Oops, that's the back one. So you could be running, that's your standard GAM large quad, that would work fine in this. And then you could even back all the way down to almost like your regular thruster or an oversized thruster. I've heard a lot of people having great success with these as a thruster. So yeah, that's the Puddle jumper. Like I say, carbon wrap. The carbon wrap's great. It's really fast. It's very poppy. The technology is good. It dampens chatter quite well. It floats well. So it's not going to knife into a grunty wave as nicely as a poly, but you're not using that for this anyway. So and the way they've tuned this carbon flex is actually kind of solves some of the epoxy downsides. You it doesn't feel super bouncy and corky like a lot of them, and like I say, it's very lively and very fast. So they've got rid of some of the negatives and some of the positives that they've even enhanced over a standard epoxy. It's pretty cool. So just try and get a bit of a view. I tried this on the Puddle fish and it worked out alright, so I'll try and get a bit of a view of the concaves through this tail and show you what the V's like. So grab my straight edge. Just plop the board on the edge of there. See how this comes out. See if we manage to do a half decent job again. So basically, I'll just move it around a little bit. It's kind of hard to do a good job of this, but you got single concave, so single, all the way through there. I'll just rock it up and down just a little bit so it gets an angle on it, and then you get to here, and it starts tipping into a little bit of V. That's a little bit of double, sorry. So you get single, you get your double there. So you can see that this is all still flat. There's no rock in that. So you're hitting your double concave just underneath your fins. And then I'm starting to get out through the tail now, and as you can see, you're starting to get into that little fin tail out back, and that's how much rock you're getting off the back. So that's basically allowing you to turn really well. So what you're getting is you single through the middle of the board here where your front foot is. That's making a big surface area, and it's channeling the water through, so it gives you your speed. And then the double behind the fins adds a bit of grip to that epoxy. And then as you're getting off the back, all that rock allows you to turn onto rail. So again, the clever thing, and this is what they're doing with a lot of the boards, the clever thing is the single concave through here is allowing the stringer line rocker to remain relatively straight. And then as this V comes up here, that's also giving you basically quite a straight rocker there. And then it's allowing this rail to taper away whilst the V's still staying up. So once you move this onto a rail, you've got that flick off the tail. It's actually helping the responsiveness of your turns. So yeah, that is the Lost Puddle Jumper in carbon wrap. Again, 6'2", 22 1/4, 2 3/4, and 43 litres. So look out for them. Think about what you want, because if you want a really small whippy grovel board, and it's definitely for small waves, you could get the normal dims. Again, like 5'11", I think it's about 42 litres, and I'm like 84 kgs, and that's still big for me. You buy these things off guys that are saying they're like 96 or more, so guys are like 180 to 180 pounds plus if it's US. And I find 42 is a good grovel literage for me. If you're a bit older and you've got a bit of a slower wave and you want it as almost like a daily driver quiver, then maybe look at stepping up to the longer slim dims model, because it really gives it some good range. Like I say, you can be riding this in a wave that's got peel to it. You can probably, a waist high wave will probably get it going fine, maybe even smaller if you're good, and then head high's fine and a little bit overhead's fine, but just not if it's a really hollow wave. So yeah, really cool board, super versatile, best I'd probably say the best groveler I've ever had. It certainly helped me clear out 2 or 3 other grovelers. So yeah, and I've ended up with because this was second hand, I've ended up with the Puddle Jumper and the Puddle Fish, because I really fancied the Puddle Fish, and I was like, you know what, if you're going to get a fish, you know how good your Puddle Jumper is, why not just fish it out a little bit rather than going taking a risk on another model, because you know how well it's going to work, because it's just a tweak of the same board. So yeah, I hope that's a good review, and we've done all the puddling, unless someone wants to send me a round pin. I'm quite happily ride it and review it for you. Alright, cheers guys, see ya.